Hi friends, today we are invited to a very unique place, a farm that is growing multiple species of tropical fruit trees, and we found out that it's the only place in the whole world that has this large variety of tropical fruit trees which are growing organically with biodynamic certification. So we are really happy that we got invited to this place, and we're grateful to Eric and Frog Valley Farm. This is in Vero Beach, Florida. It's really exciting to take this journey. We are taking you through this wonderful way of farming. I'm sure many of you will be curious to know this unique and new technique that I had learned a lot about it, but I had not seen it in practice, and today seeing it really blew my mind off. Out of curiosity, I have learned a lot about organic farming and gone beyond organic into syntropic farming, biodynamic farming, Jadam techniques, and a lot of different things that all actually bring together into a more natural way of farming. But I wanted to see it in practice. And I'm really excited today to see how it is in real life. This is the farm that we've been waiting for so long to see, all these different ways of farming that I really love. I'm very passionate about natural farming, and I would love to see today where it takes us. Here I am with Eric, who is owner of Frog Valley Farm. We had a lot of feedbacks about this particular kind of farming, which is different from the norm or conventional practice of farming. So we wanted to learn from Eric as to what were his difficulties and struggles in starting the farm and everything about the farm. So very excited to meet Eric, and very excited to see what we can learn today.
Hi, I'm Eric. Welcome to Frog Valley Farm. We farm biodynamically.
As we enter from the main street towards the Frog Valley Farm, we see that on both sides there are annonas growing, and they look really healthy. Look at the color of the leaves of these annonas. And we also see some gingers planted in between the annonas, and a lot of mango trees around as well. So this is how it is. We have never been here before, but it looks very welcoming with trees on both sides and trees looking healthy as well. Look at the healthy annona here. They don't get sprayed with pesticides or any fertilizer. Fertilizer meaning it's a natural manure that Eric sprays. But other than that, there is no chemical fertilizer here, no pesticide here, and they look like very healthy trees. And that's very encouraging to growers like us who want to think outside of the box, who want to think that is there any other way of growing trees that we don't have to depend on big companies for fertilizer every couple months, or do we not have to depend on these big companies who produce pesticides for mass production for all the farmers? Is there any other way? And seeing these trees like this, perfectly healthy and producing, gives hope for all growers like us who believe in natural farming, going back to the times where human beings and plants and animals were living together in one symbiotic whole.
This is our whole fertility program, pretty much, is the grass-fed manure. They get no worming, and we grow all our own feed, and it's Zebu, indigenous humped cow of India, and supposedly they have the best bacteria in their intestinal tract for garden health.
Come here, Luna Tuna. Why are you acting? She's the friendliest one.
So Eric, how did you start?
I was growing tropical fruit. I've been growing it for the last 9 years, and I started out on a 2.5 acre piece of property that was heavily forested with horses, and I got up to about 70 trees, and I was fairly maxed out on where I could grow. And my partner, I kept making him taste different fruits and he finally tasted sapadilla and egg fruit, raw sapote, and said, we need to grow these more on a larger scale. So I had seen this farm, and it was still for sale, and it was all lawn and horse pasture for the past 50 years, basically, and it had nice old growth trees and nice location, and it was perfect for what we needed.
And that was 2000
And that was 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
End of November of 2015.
And why did you name Frog?
Because if you look, there's frogs everywhere in the windows. There's frogs in our light fixtures outside. There's dozens of frogs. Vero Beach, before they put in the drainage ditches, was the frog gigging capital of Florida. So I love frogs, and I thought that was appropriate for this spot.
Now it's been 4 years. You know, we just had a tour of the farm, and it's amazing how plants have grown. And you are growing it different than conventional growers in Florida. Tell us, before we go into what is different in how you are growing everything here, tell us what actually interested you in learning about it. And obviously you told us that you actually learned a lot, did a lot of research before you started. So the background we want, what made this happen?
Right. Well, I've always grown organically in my entire life. I went to school for ag business for a very brief period before I moved on. But I continually grew stuff. I collected cacti, I collected roses, I grew them. I've always had horses, so our properties have always been larger. And I've always had lots of manure, so I knew how to grow plants with manure. But I'd never grown so many in such degraded, compacted soil conditions. And I was searching for information through the Tropical Fruit Forum, and there was zero information on how to grow these organically. And people basically said I couldn't do it, and thought it was funny that I would try it and waste my time. But I planted a bunch of stuff in the lawn and kept mowing it, and stuff would die. All the trees, not all of them, but a big majority of them would die in the conditions we had. So I started taking classes on soil and soil health, and I ended up taking over 190 units on classes that I could actually learn something from. I learned that the best way to build soil is with living roots, and grass in particular is the single best way to grow soil. There is no other better way to build soil, period.
So you took classes on different ways of farming?
I took classes on soil science.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to figure out what was wrong with my soil, why my manure inputs were not cutting it. And I needed to fix the compaction, and the roots of the plants, when they're cut, only go down as far as they're cut. So if you let them grow, they grow down further. And then to stay off of it, to stop the compaction. So I completely stopped mowing about 2 years ago, and almost overnight, we noticed the trees stopped dying. Then I started spraying Biodynamic sprays. This was before we were certified Biodynamic. And I noticed under the nitrogen fixing elephant ear tree that in the tall grass there was soil structure where there used to be white sand. And so I realized that there's something to manure-based sprays and tall grass for biology, and we've just kept doing it until we got certified.
So this biodynamic that you just said, I know it's a big subject and it's not for talk, it's actually experiential that you do something.
Right, it's a regenerative. Most people consider it the only way to regenerate property, or the best way to regenerate soil and a farm. And it's all about life and promoting life and encouraging life and not killing anything, not deleting anything. I do edit pepper trees because I despise them pretty much, but that's the only thing we remove. The rest of everything gets just pruned. Being biodynamic, we have to produce all our own fertility. We have to be 85% closed loop system. We're more like 98% closed loop system. I don't like buying anything. I don't even like buying plants. Buying plants that are grown conventionally have a 50% chance of dying unless you activate them and get your soil activated with biology. To do that, there's numerous ways. Manure, teas, compost teas, Jadam, indigenous microorganisms. You can modify all these things to suit your schedule and your preference. So for instance, rather than growing indigenous organisms in rice and burying it in the ground, I just go dig up the indigenous organisms next to the healthiest old growth oak tree we have, and get a bucket full of humus, put it in a water, put a lid on it in the shade, and stir it once a day for 3 days, then strain it and then spray it on the orchard floor. That's not following Jadam exactly, but it has the essence of it, and you're getting the microbes. So there's more than one way to grow these things. You can grow them in your hay, you can grow them in yeast made from flour, a wild yeast, and put it underneath a nitrogen fixing tree to get the nitrogen fixing bacteria or whatever into your microbiology that you make a tea out of. But for us, we have found that the single best way to get all the biology, the biggest bang for your buck, is the Johnson-Su composting method. We do that, we modify it. It's a static form of compost, and we use manure from our zebu cattle and our donkeys in it, and also hay and wood chips and some indigenous soil from under a tree, along with some chop and drop from like a Caesar weed. And we put pipes in it so it is not completely air-free, but we punch holes in 4-inch tubing and put that inside the compost pile. It's like a lasagna layer, and then that way it gets air, and then we put water on it for several days, and then we take the pipes out after a month and put a cover over it, and within less than 6 months it's ready to plant vegetables in, and it's been shown to have like 20 different types of nitrogen fixing bacteria. It has gold processing bacteria. It has every bacteria known and needed by plants in it. And it was developed by a PhD in agronomy along with his wife, who I believe is a PhD in microbiology or something. But it's a good form of getting microorganisms into your soil, and you don't need very much, just small handfuls scattered about. Or if you only have a little bit, you can make a tea out of it, let it 5-gallon bucket of water with a can of compost, and stir it for 3 days. I like to mix all my sprays together, so I mix a little of the bokashi compost in it, leachate, and fermented milk-based spray in it, and you can mix them all together and spray it. But basically staying off of it, following the 5 soil health principles, using animal manures, staying off of it, roots in the ground, and keeping it covered will solve pretty much all your problems. So they are like soil scientists extraordinaire and agronomists, and for I think University of New Mexico and University of California, Chico, But anyway, they developed this non-turning system, a static pile, and you put these tubes in it that you poke holes in it, and then you do your lasagna compost pile where it's hay, wood chips, manure, chop and drop, and then repeat, and then some indigenous micro nutrients from under the tree, like over here. I'll pick up a bucket of this, and add that every layer, and then I put my biodynamic preps in it, and then I water it. I put a hose on top of it, and I water it for a few weeks. I just leave it on very lightly, and it just gets it all wet. After a month, I remove these things, and I put this tarp on it, and then when this drops, it'll drop. All of a sudden, it'll flatten out.
Oh.
I consider it ready, and it's like mostly finished, but it's a lot of unfinished, not stable but active organic matter, and stable organic matter mix, perfect for growing vegetables.
Okay.
Or I throw it around. I make a compost tea of it, and that's pretty much all I do. And I found that adding compost will increase the number of mangoes your trees produce, at least from my experience. The more compost it gets, the more fruit it's going to produce. I have not reached a limit where I can make that much compost where it's too much. Specific compost. All compost is not created equal. Wood chips are not compost. They're a compost ingredient. Like I said, this is a modified Sue Johnson. Theirs has a pallet underneath. It's taller. They wrap it in wire, and they put shade cloth around it, and then they fill it up. These tubes are all in it like that, and then they water it, and then they add they do worms in it. So it's a mix of compost with worms to finish it off at the end. And supposedly it's as good as cow.
You could put food scraps here.
I do bokashi compost. I put that in there. Because my bokashi compost has black flies, soldier flies in it, and you're not allowed to use flies for growing food for some reason. But if they come naturally, which when I leave the food scraps out, the flies lay their eggs on it, and then I put them in the bucket, so I always have them. That's natural. So it's okay if they come natural, but I can't add them. I can't go out and buy black soldier flies and put in there.
That's a good point you brought in, that all the problems here in Florida, because many people tell, hey, the soil in South Florida is different, it's like hard coral, we have highly alkaline, we need to put a lot of chemicals in it even for plants to start absorbing, because they need to have a neutral pH or acidic pH, and all those things. I also heard someone from the Tropical Fruit Forum invest thousands and thousands of dollars to buy all these chemicals to change the pH of the soil so that his plants start to look better. And he was actually proud that now, after 3-4 years of changing the soil chemistry, his plant leaves don't look like they are deficient. They are able to absorb nutrients from the so there are growers like that, but again, it's a lot of cost.
Right. Well, I'm not sure if that may have fixed it for a moment, but you're not going to keep it that way. And I know that carbon is a buffer for pH, so that if you're growing your cover, your orchard floor, as thick and diverse, biodiverse, that was the last soil health principle, biodiversity, biodiverse orchard floor, and it's thick and healthy, all that leaf droppings and dying plants and debris will buffer your pH to the optimal pH for the plant that is growing in that spot.
That's good. That's good. Another thing, interesting thing actually I learned, because you keep on sharing these links in Tropical Fruit Forum.
Right.
You mentioned Syntropic, and we did a little bit of, not a lot of research, but a little bit of research just to know that Syntropic is kind of going back to the forest system where there are many plants together helping each other. One tree helps the other, and you want to tell more because you have in-depth knowledge and experience of doing that here in the farm.
Right. Well, I kind of laugh when people think that plants compete with each other. That's not true. Maybe on the studies that were done with conventional farming on vegetable crops, it could be true. But for tropical fruit, rare tropical fruit trees, I've never known any of my trees to complain. In fact, they all seem to do better. The more biodiversity or tree I add, the closer to the tree, the better everyone does. I take a more is better approach to plants and trees, so I don't have a problem planting a tree within 3 feet of another tree. They don't seem to mind. I see them every day, so I'm not going to wake up one morning and say, oh my God, what am I going to do about this tree? It's invading my other tree, because I've seen it every day, and they have grown together well.
Same with the grass, because I keep on hearing people say, when they post pictures of a mango tree, because I'm interested in mango, with a lot of grass around, first thing 50 comments, first, like most of them is like, take the grass out, or remove.
Right.
It's like, but my experience, my personal experience in our garden is the tree with the grass, it has been pretty healthy. There's really no problem. I don't understand. And yours, as like,
well, it goes back to one of the basic soil health principles on the best way to build soil is with grass. And being a non-waterer of mangoes, because you care about their flavor, as do I have found that in non-watered mangoes, if you put them in the ground and you remove all the grass around that mango, you're also removing all the carbon that's in the soil. Living roots are the best way to put carbon into the soil. Carbon holds 8 times its weight in water. So when you remove all the grass and roots from in the sand or the rock, you're removing all the water that plant has to grow with. I have never noticed a plant dying because of grass growing next to it, but I have noticed little trees dying in drought conditions when there is no grass planted with it.
thanks. And talking about the little trees, most of the trees you brought are from nurseries with their own soil system, right? I mean, they use
originally, when we first started, all of our because I plant everything by myself. I don't have any help. I don't hire anyone. I don't use any machinery. Well, I have a wood chip grinder on our tractor, and I pull up pepper trees with our tractor. So I grow mostly seed-grown trees, because I found that seed-grown trees are healthier and don't require water. Pretty much every nursery-grown plant that I have hooked up to water, because they don't seem able to cycle nutrients, water being one of them, like seed-grown trees. And I'm not sure if that's because they were chemically raised. I have some trees that I've gotten that were organically raised that don't seem to have that problem. But just planting the nursery-grown trees in the ground and not giving them any water, and if there is no grass, wood chips are okay, but they don't put water in the ground, and they impede water flowing into the sand or the soil. So I do like wood chips, but I don't like them to be the primary. I don't want that to be that is not a farm plan. That is not a long-term farm plan. It's not a known way of growing food. It works for, it does work, but in combination with living roots and other plants and other inputs, then I agree with it. But to put wood chips, no, it just doesn't, it compacts the soil. It's really, anyway.
That's where the septic is, so you could always do the wildflower on top of septic as well, septic areas.
This is the cha-cha. Look at this poor tree, it's dying from all that grass, killing it. And turmeric and ice cream bean, seed-grown ice cream bean. seed-grown Queemuck that's been flowering for 2 years. I've had it for 8. That's a pond. That's all the drainage goes. Used to go in there, but we don't get anymore. It's only like a foot deep. It's full of tilapia and water moccasins probably, so I don't go near it. And there's my little moon.
So we are at the end of our day here at Frog Valley Farm, and we're really happy to have seen, I wouldn't say everything, that's why I think we'll be coming back again. And we'll be coming back again during fruiting season as well, because we want to see
It's usually fruiting season, but for some reason it's not today, of course.
And we want to thank Eric, thank everyone here, all the plants, all the animals, everyone, to give us this opportunity to be here and to learn so much from here. And thank you, Eric, and see you soon.
You're welcome. Come back.
And maybe this video will inspire more friends who are interested in biodynamic to come here and see and learn as well.
Yes, we're not open to the public, but I do like sharing with people that are interested in regenerative farming practices.